Ready? Okay, no problem. And in the meantime, we can get it still pan organized. We will see how we can get that organized, Anthony. So we're going to assist us. So Anthony, you're gonna assist us to get a still pan. By the way, in case you're wondering, this is the big session. This is the Creole Heartbeat, and we are going to have a very special program as we delve into the steel pan in Dominic. And guess what? We're going to be treated with some live steel pan as we are now setting up the steel pan of Atherton Mate with us. Challenged visually, but he knows his whereabouts when it comes to the steel pan. He's getting the stuff done by himself. And we're going to have a wonderful discussion on the whole evolution of the pan in Dominica and how important it has been for us. What is the status of it at this point? How are we going to navigate towards getting it back to its prominence, if ever? At least have some authority, some body responsible for doing something about the pan, where we don't have to lose some of our natural attributes like we are doing presently, and just focus on putting all our eggs in one basket. I think just focusing on just putting all our eggs in one basket can be dangerous. Yes, tremendous dividends now, but who knows for later? We have to bring our children up to speed with what's going on. We have to bring our children, nurture, teach them, engage them, get them to be a more wholesome child. And this is where we are at this point in time. So once again, Mr. Martin is getting himself organized. So when we're ready for live still pan, we know. So Anthony, just get him across to the mic and just have a discussion with him first. And then when we're ready for still pan, we will allow him. Okay, allow him to get closer to the mic. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. And I'll give him one of the headphones so that he can hear us loud and clear. And we can actually take a few calls sometime later. And good morning to you, Mr. Mate. How are you, sir? How are you? How are you? How are you? Tout bagaille bien, avec mon content, ouais, man. Mon content, ouais. C'est toujours un plaisir, les mon frère.
Lever, ouais, même si massa ouais bien, maka ouais,
Ou pas ça, ouais, moi.
bon savou là.
Moi, ça,
Il faut qu'attendre voir.
ouais. Et ça qui est important.
Ah, c'est ça qui ouais.
Et moi, quand vous voyez, vous regardez bien. Et moi, content, vous regardez bien. Premièrement, moi, les remercier pour un petit temps pour nous parler comme style pan.
Ouais.
Parce que ça, c'est un instrument qui est important pour nous en Dominique. Et puis, mon Caraïbe aussi. How are you, Mr. Martin? How are you? How are things? How are you?
What is I'm there? I'm good. I give thanks.
Yes.
I bless every day
Yes.
and every moment. And you know, the blindness kind of makes you appreciate more
Yes.
everything.
Absolutely.
You get up, you can breathe, you appreciate breathing. You can hear, you appreciate hearing. You can speak, you appreciate speaking. And most important, you can think.
Yes. That's the most important. I want to thank you, though, on record that you have really been sending me some very informative videos, information.
Yes.
Continue to widen my knowledge, brighten my knowledge. And I want to place on the record a special thanks to you, sir.
Well, let me go on record as thanking you for the work you have been doing all along. You're a young fella, but you started early in life doing the kind of work that you're still doing.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage you and others like you to do that kind of what I call be a culture warrior as you are.
Yeah.
Don't fear as you don't.
Yeah.
You know, what you see, say it.
Yeah. I believe when you understand the importance of who we are, especially where we came from, the challenges, the struggles, the history, the legacy, you become fearless because you now know that there's a cause.
Absolutely.
There were people before you. You're conscious of your teachings. You're conscious of your work. And for some reason, you must be fearless.
Absolutely.
Because you will get all kind of opposition. But our discussion this morning is the steel pan. And the steel pan in Dominica in particular, we know it was originated from Trinidad. But can you recall at what point it reached Dominica? Because we know quite a bit of our history is collated with Trinidad in terms of our carnival and our music.
One of the things about steel pan is that in a very, very special way, it heralds the connection between the various islands of the Caribbean. That thing that continues to elude us, which is integration and cooperation and federation and working together. Steel Pan does that. Because although it started off in Trinidad in the early 50s, for example, it pretty soon spread throughout all the islands. There's some discussion about Antigua, because in Antigua also was a very, very early location for steel pan in the Caribbean. So, but it definitely was invented in Trinidad and Tobago, in Port of Spain. And so by the mid 50s, there was evidence of what we now know as pan on the road. But it didn't start off that way, Wadix. It started off in a peculiarly African way. After the war, 1945 was when the war ended, the European war. And there was a mood of celebration throughout, and people, took to the streets to celebrate and parade and so forth. And there's something called, you and I know what it is. It's bamboo.
Yeah.
Bamboo of different sizes. If you cut a piece of bamboo that is only 2 inches in diameter versus a piece of bamboo that is 5 inches diameter, it will give you a different resonance. All right. And so the young men of the time just used bamboo, and were knocking pieces of bamboo onto the pavement. And that was giving them their rhythm. And then some of them had sticks in their hand, and as they knocked the bamboo, they hit the bamboo on the side of the bamboo. So they were getting, a harmonic rhythm, and that was the instrumentation of the time. That was the only thing that was allowed, because remember, it was colonial time, British, etc. And if British were very afraid of the African population going back to their roots, because they felt that it would lead to revolt and revolution. Okay, so then as they did that, some of the younger guys, now these are guys I'm talking about 14 years old and younger, they joined the older boys in this rhythmic parading using bamboo. And but they couldn't get bamboo, the young boys. So they went along the road, and they started picking up people's rubbish cans, people's trash cans, and they started picking up anything that they could get to make a noise, and biscuit cans, paint cans, and they started beating them. But they realized they couldn't beat them with their hand, so they got sticks, and they started beating the surface of these cans with sticks. And after a day of doing that, guess what?
There was some music.
There was not only music, but there was different tones, because the pans that were softer and that had been beat throughout the day, the metal got tighter and it began to sink. And so you had a higher pitch note. You had a higher pitch on the same surface compared with the other pans that were more resilient, more resistant to bending, which were of a lower thing. So you had, so for example, so they realized that from the same surface of pan, they were getting different tones, different notes.
Yes.
And that was, in fact, the miraculous beginning of steel pan,
Yes.
And then some of the guys, after the parading and so on, they went back to their yards, their parents' homes and their yards and so on. And they say, but how is that? How we can get different tones from the same place? And they started, as boys would, knocking it with stones and so on. And the experimentation began. And eventually, a gentleman by the name of Winston Spree Simon is generally the person accorded with the honor of having created the situation of 3 distinct notes out of one surface. For instance, the notes he created, those 3 notes. And eventually, by that time, of course, everybody in primary school learning nursery rhyme and so on, you're singing, Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah.
So the It on record in Trinidad, the first tune that was played on a pan surface with multi notes was so they used the three notes and they played Mary Had a Little Lamb and they played it with African tempo, calypso tempo, pa, pa, da, ba, pa, 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 da, 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 da. And they went down the road, and that is considered the actual beginning of steel pan. Okay, and then as things went on, other young men began in experimenting, and they got more notes and they created more notes, and eventually they started using pans of larger diameters. Eventually, as you know, Trinidad was also used by the US during the World War, and they built a military base at Chaguaramas, and they used to bring in their fuel in 45-gallon drums.
Yeah.
And after they extracted the fuel, they discarded the drums. The young boys took the drums and they started experimenting. And in a few years, voila, they created a pan. And in doing that, now you have to understand that Trinidad, because of the oil industry, a lot of our young men from the Eastern Caribbean gravitated to Trinidad, migrated to Trinidad, as they did to Aruba and Curacao for the same oil industry. And they picked up on the pan. And in Dominica, in the 50s, there's a gentleman that we know as Tall Boy from Pont Michel. I can't remember his Christian name, but his son used to work at the lotto office.
Okay.
But his name was Tall Boy because he was actually very tall. And he used to play badmas. In Trinidad, he became associated with a group in the area of Dry River in Port of Spain, which is where one of the leading steel bands today still has as its home. The Trinidad All Stars Steel Pan has its home in that area. At the time, they were not Trinidad All Stars, they were just the Red Army. Remember, you're coming out of a war, so all the names people thinking of for their carnival stuff is army related. So they had the Red Army Steel Pan, which was a Bajon steel pan. So they would go around making music but beating up other groups.
Yeah.
And because they wanted to be the only steel band on the road, they took the pans from other groups and so on and so on and so on. But now remember, there were people from other islands who also went to Trinidad. In Dominica's case, I actually located Tall Boy as being the person who eventually introduced what we now know as a full-fledged, pan with full scales into Dominica. Because when he came back to Dominica one time in the late 50s, early 60s, he brought with him a pan made in Trinidad. And that's why Pont Michel actually holds a place of prominence in steel pan in Dominica. And that tradition had been held up sometime before. But from the north...
Is Tall Boy alive as we speak, Mr.
Tall Boy passed a few years ago. But, fortunately, while I did a stint, as you probably recall, at Mapping TV, and I was able to interview Tall Boy at his home. And so there is a record of his recollection of his time in Trinidad and how he came back to Dominica with a pan and what he did and so forth. But from the north of the island now, there was another process by which pan came to Dominica. So you had a southern source, but there was a northern source, because in the meantime, Antigua had moved ahead with pan, and the two major steel bands in Antigua were one called Brute Force and the other one called Hell's Gate. These kind of names sound militaristic and vicious and violent, because that was the time, because there were people who were coming out of the war and so on. And Hell's Gate Steel Band is still a champion steel band in Antigua today. But a number of our people from the north of the island, Portsmouth in particular, who would be trafficking, huckstering, bringing food already to Antigua, they went there, and some of them as young boys went to Antigua and stayed. And there's one guy in particular, and that's part of Dominica's untold history. These guys are the unsung heroes of Dominica. There's a guy called Stafford Joseph. Stafford Joseph, at 16 years old, migrated to Antigua. And eventually, you know what? He became the captain of the championship steel band in Antigua, Hell's Gate.
Wow.
He's an excellent player of music as well. He was also a trade unionist in Antigua. And Stafford, oh my goodness, Stafford came back and forth. He told me he tried many times to introduce the band, the notion of steel band in Dominica. And in a way, he succeeded. Because I recall there was a time when there was a full-fledged steel band in Portsmouth, I don't remember all the names of all the people. There's a guy, I think his name was Gerard and others. But there was a full-fledged steel band, about 25 or so people who played steel band at Carnival, but also came to Roseau around Carnival and competed in the competitions. There was a steel band also in Maho. There was a steel band in Massac. There was a pan group in Grand Bay. And the main driver of that, a guy called Moses, who used to work at Public Works, he recently died a few years ago. But Moses was the guy who kept that going.
That's in Granby.
In Granby. And then, of course, in Mont Michel, of course, you had people. You had what was the name of the band from Mont Michel? There was a very popular steel band out of Mont Michel, which was kind of resuscitated by a gentleman from there who had been away for a while and came back to the island and did that. And a lot of the young guys who are elders to your age, they used to play in that band. So Dominica at one point had about 7 or 8 full-fledged steel bands,
So while the steel bands around the various areas around Dominica, what happened in the city itself?
Okay. In the city, we had 3 steel bands.
Okay.
You had Shell, a band whose home base was on Upper Lane, at the corner of Upper Lane and Riverbank. And then you had Esso, whose home base was in the yard behind what is now Hasbro Medical Center.
Were these two ever affiliated with, let's say, the gas stations?
Absolutely, they were sponsored. And this is a very important point you're allowing us to raise. Because the bands, in the earlier days, businesses were willing to sponsor steel bands. And the sponsorship was important for the business, for the issue of pans, getting the instruments made, getting uniforms, hiring maybe a musician to train the band and train the players, etc. So some of the prominent sponsors back in the day were J. Astafan and Company. Mr. Wadi Astafan was the first sponsor of our band, which was a band of younger teenagers, a school band, the St. Mary's Academy, your alma mater. I
So
believe.
the St. Mary's Academy had its own steel band.
Yes, we started it there, and the brothers, the Christian brothers, Brother Gorman, Brother Villeco, and all of these guys, they were very encouraging of it. And they were the ones who gave permission.
Well, was it part of the school curriculum then?
It wasn't an official part of the curriculum, but it was clear that it had the fullest support of the administration. Because remember, at that time, the full agenda, the program of the St. Mary's Academy was not just academically comprehensive, but there were a lot of extra
activities and sports,
like a debating club, an elocution club, a glee club, a performing arts club. We had all those things going at the St. Mary's Academy. And so the PAN group.
So we started with Esso, and you said Shell, and then
Esso,
in the city around the city.
In the city, then there was the other group was the group that we had, was a group which eventually it moved from sponsorship by Astafan, which was one of his products sponsored it, Cisco paints, and then there was Chocolate County.
Chocolate County, that is across by the river, by the riverbank,
right?
Where Best Price, I think, is located now.
Where and KFC is located.
KFC,
on the same lot. There's a nice big mango tree in there. which served the group very well during recreation.
I am from Port and I remember this special steel.
The special, yeah,
That's in the Goodwill.
absolutely,
Yes, below Bullseye Pharmacy area. You know, they used to
yeah.
they used to
But the,
practice somewhere around
the
there.
bands used to move around because after a while people used to get fed up. They say too much noise. Last trip,
Really,
top to and so some of the neighbors would complain and we would have to find somewhere else.
okay.
But this special, a lot of the people in this special gravitated towards Chocolate County,
Okay.
and then some gravitated towards what eventually became Vauxhall,
Yeah.
which was sponsored now by Shillingford, Eric Shillingford, who was the owner of the garage that sold and serviced Vauxhall motor cars. So, so all of these, you can see there was a really interesting support coming from the private commercial sector for the art form. And it wasn't just in MOV, it wasn't just even in finance, because these steel bands used to be used throughout the year. They would play at cocktail parties, they'd play at birthday parties, they'd play at other functions. Even sometimes the Catholic Church would involve. I remember as a young boy, I saw Esso steel band playing in the Roman Catholic Cathedral. And that's a long time ago. So I'm suggesting that the atmosphere in the community was much more amenable and supportive and of the art form of steel pan, both in terms of sponsorship and encouragement. There was a lady; she was a wife of the Anglican minister of the time. She was a musician, and she actually took Shell under her wing and started teaching them light classical music in the Emery schoolroom, which no longer is there, but it's in the yard.
The Emery School was around after SMA.
Yeah,
There was a little place. I remember doing drama. I keep wondering where was that place. It was just between the church and the St. Mary's Academy area there.
That's Jewel Street. That's
yes.
That's where I was born,
Street, yeah.
and that is where I grew up.
I remember we used to have drama classes there.
Emery schoolroom.
Yes.
It was Canon Eversley, I think was the guy's name, and his wife, wife of Canon Eversley. She was a musician, and she invited. And I remember as a young boy seeing them bring the pans into the Emery schoolroom, and there she was with a piano teaching them light classics. And you know who was one of these pan players at the time?
Who?
The father of Jacko, the Calypsonian.
Idol. Wow.
Idol used to play a wicked bass. But he also played other instruments. He played the tenor and other instruments. But the point is, there they were being taught music on an instrument that the lady had never ever seen before in her life, before she came to the Caribbean, and so on. So people made fuller use of the instrument and its capacity, in those times.
Prior to the pan, Afi, we know of the Lapo Cabinet. When the pan came into existence, how would they merge? How the carnival, because I am very interested in that aspect of it. How was the marriage between the Lapo Cabinet then and the steel pan?
Well, the marriage was like one made in heaven kind of stuff, because they were both, remember, acoustic instruments, both percussion instruments. The Lapo Cabinet, you had to strike it in order to get a note out of it, and it was hand played. These instruments also are percussion instruments that you only get a tone out of it if you strike the surface. And so there was a kind of a common, ready marriage. They were like first cousins. And one did not overpower or overcome the other one. So I remember seeing Juve with Lapo Cabinet from Newton upon Michel or Balaouton coming in, and the next thing behind it was a steel band. And there are people who preferred Lapo Cabinet and sort of stayed with Lapo Cabinet, and the people who preferred steel band. And steel band did Juve alongside Lapo Cabinet. And the point is, and all of that was done. We didn't have a cultural division in government. We didn't have any cultural officers promoting and encouraging. This was this was the result of genuine community interest and persistence, because these instruments were used all year round. Remember, there were all these fetes and festivals, religious or otherwise. So
Feast,
Lapokap
various
with
feasts.
Jingping and steel band. Really, that is three traditional forms of music, sources of music and music instruments, which back in the day were used throughout the year. So there was a lot of reason for the players, the instrumentalists, to stay with the instrument and become better at it, as opposed to nowadays.
You mentioned Trinidad in
Mhm,
terms of let's say training, but in terms of let's say to tune
mhm.
the pans, were there local tuners or we had to import tuners because it would
I'm
be
coming to that.
important
Yeah,
to find out who tuned those pans, how
yeah,
were they
yeah.
able to be sustained and that sort of thing.
Exactly, exactly. You know, you're so bright.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And because there were two things without which you couldn't have the progress of the instrument to where it is today. One of them is the players,
Yeah.
and their willingness to become creative and discover the potential of the instrument, and that it was not limited to calypso and Caribbean rhythms, because it was a full, by then, it was a full instrument. By 1963, which was when the first steel pan panorama competition was held in Trinidad and Tobago, and then subsequently in other islands, the instrument was a full-fledged instrument which could play classical music, jazz music, blues music, and calypso music, as well as traditional music. So if the players are key, but then you mentioned the other key element, the manufacture and the making of the instrument and the tuning of the instrument. Dominica was fortunate in that back in the day we had two or three local guys who, by virtue of their knowledge of other persons in Antigua and in Trinidad, became tuners and makers. One of them was the father of Jacqueline Andre,
That's Eddie.
Eddie Andre. And Eddie made pans, and then Eddie was more directly associated with the Esso Steel Band because he was also a pan player.
Yeah.
People forget that Eddie was a very good first pan player, and he played with the band, but he made the pans and tuned the pans as well. Okay, and so there was that arrangement for Esso Steel Band, and then other groups would approach Eddie, and Eddie would help them out and make a pan or tune a pan. The other group was Shell. And there was this gentleman, I don't know if you know him, Miguel Dublin. Do
No.
you
A
remember?
very tall guy.
Very tall guy.
Was he related to Pottersville or something?
Yeah,
Pottersville. Very
That's
tall.
correct.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
No,
Very tall guy.
He was the tuner and maker of pans for Shell, because there, as with everything else, there's always competition. You had competition between Notre Dame and Thunderstorm. You had and later on you had what's his name? Yeah, the football team from Pottersville
And Newtown,
Harlem Rovers, and da. So the competition which drove the steel band community was between Shell and Esso.
Yeah.
And there were some of us in our group who decided that Shell was our favorite or Esso was our favorite, and we had friendly competitions among ourselves, friendly arguments among ourselves. But so we had those two tuners, and then we had another gentleman, I think his name was Knowlton, who had been associated with the Antigua phenomenon, and he came back and he was doing a little tuning, but he didn't stay here very long. So
were these tuners paid, or at least give a little
were they what?
a little stipend?
Were they paid? Yeah. I mean, but
it was a job to pay.
Of course, and it was a difficult job because
Yes.
you had to cut the pan, you had to sink the pan, you had to burn the pan, you had to groove the pan, all before you.
So that tuner would take the pan from scratch.
Build it from scratch.
And
You'd get those 45-gallon drums from
yeah.
Esso oil or Shell oil, and you go and negotiate. Sometimes we're going to steal the drums, and whatnot. And they would get paid. But it's interesting you asked that, because back in that time, I remember I was about 12 or 15 years old, and um, you would pay $8 for a pan.
For a pan.
$8.
Eight
You know
dollars
what this instrument costs today?
uh-huh.
$600
For a steel pan.
for a pan of that caliber,
Yeah.
made with specialized steel, etc., etc., etc. But Eddie and them made pans for $8. Then
$8,
when it
yeah.
went to 15 and 20 and 25, and they tuned,
Mhm.
and the sponsors, and this is where the sponsorship became important. The sponsors pitched in with a stipend for the tuners, for the tuning of the band. Remember, Eddie, for a while after Esso had gone and run its course, Eddie had Coca-Cola,
Yeah. And Fanta also Fanta pan.
Fanta
Fanta
Pan,
pan, yeah.
right? And so the Coca-Cola company,
Yeah.
Gabriel and Company,
Sponsor.
would allow him time, but also contribute some minimal stipend to the effort he was making in terms of tuning.
Who controlled, or who was the authority of Carnival then, and how was it collated with both the steel pan and the Lapu Cabinet?
Well, one of the things I remember about the organizing of Carnival is it was all volunteer.
Mhm.
Nobody was paid. There were no officials involved. I remember my father and his friends. He used to work at the customs. He came home, and then his other male friends in here, you would see them taking their hammers and their saws, and they went to build the stands and stage for Carnival in the Windsor Park. That was their contribution. And they also dismantled it afterwards. They didn't just leave it. But it was all voluntary.
Voluntary.
And people from different neighborhoods became known for costume bands or floats. We used to have a nice float parade on Carnival Sunday. You wouldn't even see the truck or the vehicle because everything was nicely decorated and so forth. And then, of course, you had eventually the Queen competitions and so on. It is when those formal competitions came into thing, and people seem to feel that they required a higher level of organization, so that the Ministry of Culture and so on became involved. And
No, no,
one
no,
one
no,
could
very important. You also mentioned the pan really became really prevalent in the 50s in Dominica,
absolutely.
which is around the same time Calypso
Mm-hmm.
competitions then
Right,
became very important.
right.
And the driving force then of the steel pan, because you said they played all sorts of
They play all
music,
kind of music.
but then now the steel pan was used to drive the calypso.
Well,
Very
yes.
importantly, to drive the calypso for the road.
Uh-huh. And to a large extent, the steel band playing the calypso on the road was what determined what was the favorite song
Yes,
for the
yes,
year,
yes.
and we now know it as the road
The
match.
road match, yeah.
But it was done by the steel bands, not by the Lapo Cabinet, because the Lapo Cabinet came with their songs.
Yes,
They were
yes.
storytelling songs in Patois, in Creole, and so with their chanterelle and so forth. So you're right. There was a kind of a natural, organic connection, because a number of the people who sang calypso were themselves associated with steel
Steel
bands.
pan, right. Idol for one.
Yes, for one, but for many others whose names I can't kind of recall, because remember there was a steel band in Maho, and
Yes.
Maho produced a number of calypsonians
Yes,
who
yes.
actually generated popularly sung and played music of the day, of the time. And but there wasn't a aggressive competition associated with that. People just wanted to express themselves.
But was there a competition among the steel pans?
Oh, yeah,
I recall there was something. I know whether it's a panorama or something, or whether it was a competition. Tell us about that.
Well, the competition. Remember, I told you the formal, full panorama phenomenon began in Trinidad
Yes.
in 1963.
Oh, 63. So by that time, it
And by
moved across to Dominica
by that
and the other islands.
time, the other islands who were following Trinidad steel band very, very closely started their own panorama. In 1963, we had a panorama competition. We have 5 or 6 bands competed at the Windsor Park.
Wow.
I remember that very distinctly. We came second in
Who won that?
Lime McCall, or the formerly Esso Steel Band. That was
But
Eddie Andrews.
so was it a fixture during Carnival time? Panorama was a
Yeah,
major.
and from then it became and a very popular show with him because the neighborhoods. Remember, there was steel band from Portsmouth, steel band from Granby, steel band from Pont. So they came
Everybody
with their
came.
community support to the show, and so that was. But again, not formally organized by any institution, but just an expression of we used to have this thing about the Dominica's Carnival was what was it called, natural or spontaneous.
Spontaneous, the
Well,
most
that it
spontaneous.
was spontaneous at the
Yes.
time back in the day, and it is part of the thing that kept Carnival going was that the music of Carnival was resident in the different communities of the island,
Yes.
and it didn't differ. Today is very, very different. You have there's a centralization of bands. Once Jeff and the other bands went by, and the band from Mahu, what's his name? Remember that very popular band from Mahu?
Bells combo.
Bells Combo.
Bells combo.
So that was the last remnant of community bands.
Yeah.
After
Because
that,
there was Groovers from Granby, there was Black Affairs from the
Marigot,
north, Milestones
First-
from Portsmouth,
and for
Rosa
Serenade,
Bass, several bands, Rosa Bass,
absolutely,
to include from Gaylords, Boys and Them,
all the way through.
Exile One Bass, basically Rosa,
Absolutely,
and then
absolutely.
several bands around.
But you see that phenomenon of community-driven music. We seem to
we
have
lost
we
that.
seem to have
We
lost that, and we need to ask ourselves, what has that done to the form, shape, and expression of Carnival?
Well, what is the highest point in the pan to your mind when, like we see what happened with Bouillon now, we can say like Bouillon is now at its highest point. When was that highest point or the peak of the pan in Dominica?
For me, it would have been the 60s, but again, what started happening after that time was there was a kind of a damper on Carnival. Remember, the Carnival fire was
1963.
in 63.
If your brother,
in fact, Wednesday gone was the 63rd anniversary of that fire.
Yes.
And so that placed a damper on things, and then people migrated, and so by the time we got to the 70s, there was steel pan, but they never got resuscitated and rekindled at the community level. So Eddie Andre was principally involved in keeping the Coca-Cola Fanta pan going, and
there was this special. I remember this special,
and this special, and then Chocolate County, and so on. But again, these are neighborhood groups rooted in a community experience, and after that,
I may be one of those guilty for some of the demise of the pan when I came in with the sound system, because I recall at the advent of sound system, let's say about, but there were scientific rules before. There's about 82, 83, what they call it came in about 84, 85. Steel pan was it? It was steel pan. It was all steel pan. A little hi-fi, but it was basically steel pan and lapo cabrit. And when we came, especially the sound system, the decibels were much higher. And people more grab, but then it coexisted for a while. I must say it coexisted for a while, because some of the steel pans played for some of the bands, some of the bands and some of the sponsors. But then I guess the sound, the decibels of the sound system kind of drowned the steel pan, and I believe it's from there we saw the kind of going down of the pan and loss of interest and the struggling, because I don't think nothing was done to, let's say, bring up or amplify the steel pan. There wasn't that interest.
There was one year we tried to amplify the pan, and it worked to a certain degree, but it was no way able to keep up with the volume of the sound systems. And I think that
let's take in a few calls, because the phones have been going
okay, no problem.
non-stop. Good morning to you for Afi Mate. We just looking back at the steel pan in Dominica. Good morning, Creole Heartbeat.
Yeah, good morning, Creole Heartbeat. Good morning, Malik, and good morning, Happy. That's moving here.
Hey, Mervin.
What's up, my friend?
A fan
How you doing?
A
player.
fan player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those were the days, my brother.
I must make that. I'm good. I must make that call because Happy was one of those guys who were really there with his hands keeping the pan alive, even during my little time that I came in the that was after Hurricane David.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in Panyard where KFC is now,
Yeah.
Chocolate County. And
Yeah.
even after that, he even never gave up and we had something called Panelec.
Yeah.
So Afimate and Pancho and Alan kept me right there on their side. I was one of those who could maybe play every pan in the ad but the beat because I was too short. Yeah, Afi can tell you because Afi and Alan made me a single tenor player. Whether I could play different bands,
Yes.
they made me a single tenor player on the side of them.
Absolutely.
But the gigs that I remember, even during those time, we used to play at After Hotel, we used to play at Coconut Beach Hotel. There were many hotel gigs. So besides just the carnival activity, and I must stress, Panorama was such a big thing that there was the calypso that you had to play and other pieces that you had to play. But there was a test piece that every band had to play, and that test piece would be the one that would bring you to the winnings, however you arrange that test piece. And I remember during Happy Time, Chocolate County won that test piece, that Panorama that time.
That's right.
So I want to interject that. And then with Miguel, Miguel was one of the persons who was building pan for us at the time, and Whitchurch was his sponsor.
Yeah.
So it was Whitchurch Chocolate County Steel Orchestra.
Right.
So that's why I had to put that in there. But kudos to Afi and the memory and going back, way back even before I was born, to the time that I end up in it and went out of it. But integral parts, we practice all the final left. We used to practice in the old mirror, practicing even Ian Jackson was the bassman at one time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I was to interject. Like his father was a good bass player back in the day of Happy. He meant and playing bass, and in final like he played bass also. So anyway, thanks for that experience, Happy. He was one of those that conditioned everybody. It was a discipline kind of thing.
Yes.
You couldn't just come and play pan.
Yeah.
Happy but a disciplinary path to pan playing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, caller. By the way, you feel free to call 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. We are just engaging.
I would like to ask your listeners the one.
Just before you ask them, just hold your thought. This is just taking this caller. Good morning to you, Afi Martin. We speak in Still Pan. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Prince Warwick and King Afi Martin.
Good morning. Laku said lang.
Since when you're in the business of creating royalty now?
I found out that program passed because I have to pay tribute to Afi himself and Miguel Dublin, Eddie Andre, Alan John Baptist, and Errol Emmanuel.
Yes.
Errol Emmanuel.
When we were at the grammar school, we started a pan and steel band.
Yes.
Eddie Andre got our pants cut for us, and the grammar school had a steel band in the 1980s. I was the coordinator of the steel band, playing the guitar pan myself.
Boy.
Yes.
For our graduation. So I want to pay tribute to these guys. They're all gone now. Miguel, Eddie, and
Alan
and Errol Emmanuel.
Yes.
They help us. Eddie and his daughters there. Fanta Fan.
Yes.
And we had a great event at the grammar school. I heard after talking about about schools. When we had TSS Portsmouth, we had a steel band there. And today, and that's natural, just teachers that were interested and students that were interested. No Ministry of Education had nothing to do with that. The students were interested, the teachers were interested. These are a good teacher that was interested in coordinating a steel band. That happened. When I left the grammar school, that died because there was nobody that was interested in continuing it. So, I want to thank you all for that program, and I just want to remark on the nostalgia. I was saying that on Old Street, you had this steel band in the night just before the dusk, and you had guys pushing that steel band. In the soul, man. No speakers, no acoustics, or nothing. Nothing. Just beautiful music, melding and blending rhythmically in the band. Everybody chipping. So thank you for that program, my brother. Great job, Rat, king, prince, and royal princess.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, my friend, and may God continue to bless you. But some nice memories
Yes,
coming from steel pan players themselves.
Oh yeah.
And now you were going to ask the audience a
That
particular question.
if any of you out there you remember who were the pan players in your respective communities, because I certainly don't
Yes.
quite remember. You can
Yes.
call in and say, yeah, I remember Mr. So and so or Ma so and so, and they used to play, because women used to play pan too.
Yes,
You know,
I
that
recall.
kind of
I
thing.
recall women playing pan.
Absolutely.
And from my area, especially, I remember a guy called Dorian Simpson.
Of course, of course.
He was also a footballer
Yeah.
for Saints, but I remembered him, and I was a big fan of Ewo.
Yeah, man.
I was a big fan of Ewo, man.
Absolutely.
Ewo would just thrill me on the pan, and I also loved what Eddie Eddie did with Fanta Pan, but then I feel we saw or we continue to see I mean, I viewed. I'm not sure if it was a panorama, but I saw the kind of level that it is taking place in Trinidad. I witnessed it live in St. Lucia. I witnessed it live in Antigua.
Yeah.
Pan is way up and continue to be way up. Among the heavy soca, they are more computerized sound.
right.
They're more, what has happened to Pan in Dominica? Why we have just lost interest? I remember sometimes the schools. I remember Mr. Prevo did something. Norris Prevo did something. Great Marlborough Street.
Yeah, he encouraged that.
He encouraged. But what has happened? Why?
Well, that's part of what has happened. There are persons outside there who love pan. I know a lot of adults who love pan, and like you grew up hearing pan. But
let us see if somebody want to mention an area that they had a
Sure.
panis. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat.
Yeah, sorry for my radio anyway. Soul Stars.
yes, Soul Stars.
Stars.
Mr. Badwill. Yes, that's it. Thank you for that, caller.
Thank you very much, caller. Sound Stars. I think that's the name you were trying to get
That's what
earlier
I was
on.
trying to remember.
Yes, we're talking about what has happened to Dominica while the other islands continue to thrive.
Right. But here you go. Two things. One, the support and the encouragement from outside. Even if I have worked to try to get our standard musicians, guys who play in the bands, to take up pan. It never happened.
Wow.
I mean, I worked on Freddie. I worked on my brother Julie. But for some reason, they didn't take to it, and so that left a few of us, like Alan and Eddie and myself, and so to sort of try to keep the tradition alive and to bring it up, because you're talking about how come in so many of the other islands pan is alive and well. Well, they took it into the one place where you must take it to. At 4 years, I've trained 4-year-olds to play pan, 4-year-olds. So you have to take it back into the schools, which is what Antigua did. Most schools in Antigua, most schools in Trinidad have a steel pan. And then the big bands co-sponsor the steel bands that are playing in the schools in their community.
Wow.
You understand that link now? So that the school doesn't have to invest in building pans, because the steel band, the big band, makes their instruments available to the students for use, for training, and for performing, and so on. So you see,
how do we get? Because we know Bob D. Just touching on Bob D. We know Bob D. Tried something at the cultural division. But with all, let's take in the call, because I have a very tricky question I want to ask. But let's just take in this call.
Okay, sure.
Because of the advent of so many other diversions, how do we get the younger people
to get back involved?
Get back involved. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I happy that you called my uncle name Dublin.
Yes.
Oh, Miguel. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. One of my best friends.
On his last days when he was staying in Mao, he used to be by Chapeau.
Yes. Yes.
And Chapeau was a great band player. He used to also train people.
Yeah. Yeah. In the Maho school,
Maho school.
Definitely, yeah. And there was a lady there who worked with Chapeau. And Chapeau was a messenger in the government service. but he played pan. He had been playing pan from a little boy, and he was in Mahood, and he was living in the home for the home care for the aged. That's where he ended up living, but he remained involved. He remained as a person who was a mentor to the younger ones who were interested in pan. But the natural home for pan in the community is the school. And, we talked about SMA, giving encouragement to that. At a time when the principals of that school were not even Dominicans, not even Caribbeans. So here you have a situation where you have over 42 schools around the island, and we don't have a sustained presence in any one of them. Portsmouth, I must say.
Not only pan, Afi, but to maintain the Lapocab with culture.
Absolutely.
Which I've been covering for the past 20 years. I've been dwindling in our faces, and we are doing hardly anything to sustain it. Good morning to you, more calls for Afi Mate. Good morning, Creole Heartbeat. Hello, good morning. Can you turn on your radio, please, or your television set? Hello. We hearing you, but a little muffled. Try again. Call us back again. But we're just trying to think of this not still. But good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat. Yes, we hearing you loud and clear. Hello.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, we hearing you now. Go right ahead.
Afi.
Yes, Afi is in the building.
Hey, what's happening? Who is this?
Yeah, good morning.
We hearing you, but very low.
You hear me?
Yes, we hearing you loud and clear now.
You hear me better?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Tilling.
Tilling. Okay, Tilling. That is Lee, Mr. Lee, Marcellus Lee.
Oh, okay.
What's up?
Well, Radix, the pan, well, I don't know if you know, but I still have a pan also myself. I first played with the cadet Steven because London the Reef come by the pan.
I'm glad you reminded us. Yes,
the pans were passed on to the cadet corps. I was telling some guys just last week here when you did this. This make it 50 years to the day that I played Steel Band. They tell me nonsense. I'm talking.
Wow.
It's not an issue.
Yeah.
Because 1976, that's when the pans were passed on to the cadet corps.
Wow.
And I played.
Yeah.
Played for a short while. And then I joined this special.
Yes.
This special was just because they launched in Goodwill there.
Yes.
I know Afi played, when I played Afi was still doing this special. You had Pancho, you had Connie, Peterson,
right,
Alan, and I was the youngest at the beat. Still in high school, and then Billy Doctor.
Yes, Billy Doctor. Yes, I remember Billy Doctor.
One of the best players.
There was a guy called Berridge. I remember playing for this special also. Berridge, Billy Doctor. I remember these guys. Yeah, man.
Billy was one of the best six-bass players that we had.
Wow.
And Peterson and Philip Timothy.
That's right.
Philip Timothy. Yes. Tilling, you really the genre, so when you hit the nail on the head.
I played the lead band.
Yes.
We played the double seconds. We had Peterson, we had Cody, the man is the master, the first band. All the rings and stuff that was Cody.
Eddie's brother.
That's Eddie's brother, Eddie and your brother.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you had Pancho, who was the arranged for the band. And so this special played one. I remember in 1981 when they had this issue with they actually had put a curfew on Carnival.
Yeah.
It's for 6 o'clock,
6 o'clock, and this special played in town. And we had to remember this special was out in Portersville, Goodwill basically, of Central South Station Drive, they went through the lodge.
We kind of losing you, Tilling, but I guess he was just referring to the time when
the incident,
Carnival was
they had to rush off the streets.
Yes, I think it was because of some death at some point in time, or some violence, and it was the hours were cut down. And I vividly remember you had to be pushing the pan up the hill, Federation Drive. I used to be one of those because I resided in Portersville. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat for Afi Mate and Steel Pan.
Yes, Leroy. Leroy, we had Big C and Chapo from Mahu.
Yes, Chapo.
Yeah.
Big C.
Yes.
How is Chapo?
How is Chapo?
Is he still?
He not too bad though.
Okay. All right. When you see him, say hello for me, please.
Yeah,
Tell him
man.
hello.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, I'm happy with doing this, Afi,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it brings back some
But you
memories
can
of some
see-
of the guys.
That's the community power.
Yes, that's the
These
community.
are regular people remembering things that occurred when they were a part of their communities.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important that it be home based in communities, and the best place in the community
In the
is
schools.
in the school.
Good morning again for the calls are coming in fast and furious. Good morning to you, Afi Mate. We're speaking still pan. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Yeah, interesting program.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, sir.
But I am calling to mention the name of Edison Honore.
Ah, yes,
And,
yes.
and he was so good that he was a one-man band. he used to travel all over Dominica. And when you see he playing his steel pan, everybody had to stop and nod their head.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
think I'm not sure if Happy Mate can remember.
I remember.
Edison Honore.
Is he alive? And is he alive?
One of the best steel band player in Dominica, and he came from Woodford Hill.
Yes,
Is he alive? Is he alive, caller? Is he alive, caller? Okay, I guess the caller didn't.
Edison Honore.
Yeah, because
of course I do remember Edison.
Eddie Honore.
Woodford Hill, that had a steel band as well. That used to
Imagine, I mean, and Woodford Hill, and that is where you're talking about the whole community again.
Absolutely,
You are so much on point. More happy, more calls, so happy, Martin the Stillman. Good morning.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Sakafet.
Afi Mate, ça t'a fait.
nous ka lité.
On va changer l'intérêt dans nous. Et que nous allons il va pousser ça autant.
Kita tadi ya.
Et ma famille d'avant.
Okay.
Avant les situations ça.
Of course.
So Afi, moi le dis ou ka soigner bien nice, articulé.
Merci pour ça. All right.
Jeffers, important here. Nice,
right.
nice, Jeffers. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
More calls, so happy. Good morning. We're dealing with the steel pan. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sakafet.
Morning, family.
Salisbury and steel pan too.
Morning, Afi.
Good morning.
I know Mahmoud. I know Salisbury and Mahmoud. Salisbury and steel pan too. Also.
Okay, but message there still banner.
Kiss out there.
Écoutez.
Okay.
Mother Kawate, I don't know, everyone know my dog I put Comelan. Makaki boyfriend, say put children. Comelan.
Usaki a chick.
Oui.
Hello.
Peterson angle.
Of course. Yeah,
Peter
Peterson.
graduate silver.
Ouais.
Yes, I do. All right.
Okay.
And where was he from? Where is he from? Where was he from?
He was originally from Vietnam.
Okay. And is he alive? Is he alive?
Taxi driver Peterson
He died.
Oh, he died. Okay, most of the legends are gone.
Yeah.
But we're recording the data, the names, because this is so important in the history of the pan.
Yeah.
And the various communities they are from, according to Afi, because that's one of the areas we have to revisit. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat for Afi Afi Mate.
Yes, I'm in there again.
Yes.
I wanted Afi to mention there was a band I remember, Oak.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was a young boy, but I remember Old Oak because how the fans were so attractive with the Old Oak written on the pan.
Yes,
Yeah.
with the logo
Yes,
of
so
the
I was a young
Old
boy. I
Oak.
remember Old Oak high up from me at one time in my life,
Yes,
but I wasn't into pan yet. So I was going to touch on Old Oak.
Yeah. So you see, what
Yes.
there were many initiatives, pan initiatives.
And very importantly, you mentioned the support.
Yeah.
The sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's unlike today where the sponsorship, or not the sponsorship, the importance.
Yeah, significance.
The
of
importance.
this. Yes, the significance.
Because one of the things I feel we may have to do is to bring back the importance and maybe explain the importance it is as part of our carnival product. Because here it is, we call in our carnival the real mass, where we're supposed to be more diverse. than the other islands, and this was a critical part of our history, carnival history,
Yeah.
where we had several communities, with steel pan and steel pan players. They came from all over Dominica. It wasn't a Rosa thing.
Yeah.
And just going back in time, we are seeing where they're from Woodford Hill, they're from Vickers, they're from all over. Portsmouth,
Grandfather
and grandfather Stillman also. Wow. Grand Bay and Point Michelle, let's say Maho, Massac.
Yeah. So,
And this is, I think one of the things we're lacking is the importance. Understanding the importance
and
of it.
here's the critical importance of a thing like steel band, as in sports and so forth. In Trinidad 2 years ago, they did a survey. You know how many young people were playing steel pan that year, 2 years ago? 120,000.
Wow.
Now, think of that.
Ages.
And in Trinidad, from 7 years to 93.
Yes.
You understand? So the point is, our youth are challenged. Part of the reason is there's nothing for them to do. They used to be able to just walk onto a field and play football for 5 or 6 hours. They can't do that anymore. There are no fields. Basketball courts are minimal, volleyball courts, tennis courts, and so forth. So steel pan has the capacity and the potential for involving. You have 42 schools. Let us say even if you had 15 of those schools with steel pans, and each steel pan group had 10, that's 150 young people who would otherwise be idle and idle hands at the workshop for that big fella, and so why not see it as part of the strategy for rescuing our young men and women? Because again, steel pan as a grouping of young people teaches them group discipline, teaches them to appreciate each other's capacity, teaches them how to work together with people of different talents and different skills. And so it reduces the potential for conflict. It also creates another possibility. And it's something I did with the Genesis steel band, which was when we brought 2 or 3 steel band groups together.
Yes.
Right? And we rehearsed at the old mill. You know what I did? I made it a condition for young people who wanted to be part of the band to be doing well at school, which means they had to report to me about how they were doing, give me their teacher's name and a number so I could call and double check. And you know what we did? Because we had some A students in that group, Oliver Grell's daughters, and so forth and so on. Many of whom are senior physicians now in New York, where all over the place. We used to stop, take a break, and allow those who were more advanced to train, to teach, to coach those who needed help in mathematics, in biology, in botany. And we did that as part of the contribution of the PAN group to the welfare, the overall welfare of the young people. And every single one of the students, some of whom were not doing well at all in school initially, not only passed their exams, but moved on. Many are doctors today. Many are accountants. Many are economists as a result of insisting, you want to be a part of this? These are the conditions under which you will be a part. And the other thing was the parents of a lot of these kids, a lot of these children, I hate that word kids, a lot of these children, their parents would come to the rehearsals and sit and listen and provide support and encouragement. And many of them would even bring sandwiches for us and little beverages. So when we take our little break, we have a little refreshment. And so I'm telling you, and that consolidated the family relationship around the art form of pan.
Can we do a part 2 next week, Friday?
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you anytime.
Because we have about 4 more minutes, and I want to hear you play.
You want to hear me?
I want the world select a song of your choice.
Why?
And we're going to play for the next 4 minutes. Um, thank you very much, Mr. Afi.
We do everything that we do for Dominica
Yes.
and the people.
I'm at liberty to tell our listeners how old are you?
80. I just turned 80 in December, on December
Has,
23rd.
has your challenge, your visual challenge, impair you from your pan playing?
Boy, the Creator is such a wonderful being. Remember, the Creator gave us 6 senses.
Yes.
So what if we take one?
I know.
Believe that's 5.
We're going to start with this point when we come back next week.
All right.
This was Everton Mate on a special program where we discuss pan, and
Thank you, Waddy.
we will give you another opportunity again to reminisce, and you can do some research in the various communities as to who were the pan players and who were those that excelled in pan, as we try to bring back the renaissance, bring back some interest in pan. Hopefully we can get the authorities and the division of our culture and who is in charge, who possibly may be willing to sponsor to get Pan back on board, Lapo Capit back on board, so we can have a true real dose, a true real celebration of the real mass with a strong contemporary and a very strong traditional. Just want to say thank you very much. Until next week, Prince Wadix, may God bless you and may God bless Dominic. And the News Major comes up next on the big station. God bless you and excess amount of love to you.
Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix. Bakou an wete ba moun plen la yo manj a kite la vi. Apresye sa yo ka fe kon yo a pa mi nou jodi. La te mouge ba le bien non nou ka konsipe moun evi. Pour nous connaître, pour nous fait pour nous tout ça bénéfice. For only one that you done for us, Lord, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good thing that you done for God, that's why we thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Acha no mundo sou passar que chale yo foi we bisi. O no connect kwa yo akuma smaka das music. All the men that can fix right with them see you. Vivian all this like one who pass check you. Yo passe tout les voyages de musique nous. Mais attention, je ne sais que la chaîne. Si pas que va dire qui a poussé. For only one as you done for us, son. Spreading the culture all over the world. For only good things that you done for God, that's why we thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Bakou an wete ba moun plen la yo manj a kite la vi. Apresye sa yo ka fe kon yo a pa mi nou jodi. La te mouge ba le bien non nou ka konsipe moun evi.